You have been given full access to the Players Lounge on the Sports Joc Show with Wayne Gandy.
Welcome back to the Sports Joc Show. I'm the Sports Joc, Wayne Gandy. I did find out that Spanx for men, they come in boxer briefs and even the old tighty whities, and they make V-neck T-shirts, Spanx. And so they got a whole men's Spanx line.
That's right.
I never even knew that.
Yeah.
I could buy that for Christmas for a couple of friends.
Friends?
Yeah. That's gags, gag joke,
Is that funny?
Well, it at least lets them know how I feel about them.
Hey, Merry Christmas. I think you're fat and you're vain.
You're fat, flabby.
You're fat and conceited. So,
as last week with the same-sex marriage passing through the Supreme Court, as we said, a 5-4 vote. It's been about a month now since Caitlyn Jenner has been out, formerly known as Bruce Jenner, but I don't even know how that works. One thing about this whole process, I think a lot of us have a lot of outside speculation because if you're like me, it's not like you even know a transgender person. You probably have to call a whole bunch of friends to find somebody that knows someone in a lot of communities that are, transgender. And some of the things that I wanted to know, I felt like, hey, I'm not one of those people that like to keep speculating. I like to eventually talk to somebody that knows what they're doing, because my mom just told me to take some green alcohol and put it on it, and then it'll go away. But it's a torn ACL. It doesn't work that way. You can't just put green alcohol on a torn ACL. You have to go get surgery.
And I'm like you, Sports Joc. I don't like to keep speculating because one time I got caught when I was 13 speculating.
But one of our producers did find us someone here locally, professional counselor over at North Fulton area Metro at Metro Atlanta, Georgia. Miss Anna Lisa Derethal. She's a trauma therapist and a gender therapist, also a transgender counselor is what he told me. Good morning to you, Anna Lisa.
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well. It's going well. I'm going to throw out a disclaimer.
Okay.
No one on my panel is homophobic. We're not transgender phobic. We do make light of stuff because we feel like our country just don't know how to take a joke sometime. We're not here to try to run you off the air.
I hear you.
We're just here to get some things that we all probably, and most people, I think most people want to know what I want to know. I don't know if that's conceition or what would that be called?
It's conceit. It's
conceit. Okay. But my first question, I guess we should find out.
She's a transgender therapist, not a linguist.
Ms. Derethal, are you transgender?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm an ally.
An ally of okay.
Makes it sound like a superhero sidekick. It's transgender man with ally girl. Let's go, ally girl.
What motivated you to choose this particular part of counseling, I would say?
Well, I've always identified with and been interested in people that are outside the fringes of society. I just find them much more interesting. And years ago, before I went into private practice, I was in community mental health, I had a client who is a transgender male, meaning born female, transitioned to male, and had been through full transition and had experienced problems in every area of life, career, family, friends, even the surgery didn't go well, so medical. And had this client for 2 years and just really gained a real appreciation for what they go through, the trials and tribulations. And so when I started my practice, I put the word out that I'm interested in working with the population, and they came flooding to my door, so to speak.
Ms. Darenthal has a bachelor's and a master's degree from Georgia State University. So Georgia State is a great university, just doesn't have a great football program.
Yes.
I didn't care about that. We're from different worlds.
Let's, because we've had debates of trying to figure out even what's the difference between, or clear up, what's transgender and what's transsexual.
Okay. Well, transsexual is an older term, so gradually it's being phased out because, language evolves.
Okay.
But
So she is kind of a linguist. In a
So it's an older term for transgender?
Yeah. That's what the term that people would use. Transgender is a newer term, and it's more inclusive. It's sort of an umbrella term that includes people who are gender questioning, meaning they don't know for sure, gender queer, meaning they don't fit neatly into either box, or gender fluid or transgender, meaning they, I guess transgender is the umbrella term, but it's used in different ways. But the typical understood meaning of the term is somebody who knows that they're in the wrong body and goes through the transitioning process so that they can correct their body to match their mind.
Now, does that mean that I totally, the sexual organ, did I change? Is there a difference between whether I, like in Caitlyn Jenner, as far as we know, she is Caitlyn Jenner, but she still have the parts of a male. Is that even if she changes, is she still the word transgender, or is there two different classifications?
It's pretty much the same classification. Some people will say that transsexual means that you are in the process of having the surgery or you've had it. The term is used differently by different people, and since the language is evolving over time, it really depends on who you ask.
Okay. Well, because that was my understanding that if you change your organ, then you're transsexual. If you're just feeling
some people
different.
would say that.
Okay. Big Kenny?
Annalisa, good morning. This is Big Kenny.
Hi.
And first of all, that disclaimer that he gave you was specifically probably for me.
Okay.
But I've got a question. I can imagine that in your profession, a lot of what you see people dealing with is the challenges with stereotypes and overcoming those boundaries. When he mentioned Georgia State being a good school but not having a great football team, you said, well, I don't really care about that. I'm from a different world. In the last couple of months, the face of transgender and the LGBT community has pretty much been a sports figure. Do you see those people as, and I'm saying, is there sometimes sort of a reverse view where you see that kind of thing as not affecting the community, but there are people inside the sports community who are dying to become their true selves, how they feel? How do you handle that?
How do you handle that? How do I handle that?
Well, I'm saying you mentioned that you sort of made it seem as if sports were negligible in this community.
Oh, I didn't mean that.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
trying to joke along with you.
Okay. Yeah, so you got to leave that stuff to the professionals. You just can't be coming on the show joking. You know what I'm saying? You don't see me counseling nobody. I'm just we gonna stay on our side of the street. Honey.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Well, Annalisa, let me ask you this. Is there any division in the LGBT community where I'm a homosexual, don't associate me with transgender? Is there is there any divide in that? Yeah, discrimination to go ahead.
Yeah, there's division in any community, and you're going to find that infighting, sure. But from what I've seen, the majority of people in the LGBT community are supportive of one another and band together to help each other achieve greater rights and liberties and freedom, and reduce stigma and discrimination.
Tell me, before we go to break, and I hope you can hold on and we can talk to you a little more after the break.
All right.
Before we go to break, where were you and what was your first thought when you heard the Supreme Court ruling?
I was ecstatically happy. Where was I? I was at home.
Okay.
I was watching TV, and since I'm very closely involved with this community, I identify with them a lot, and I understand their struggles. So it was very exciting and happy. Love wins. That's what it's all about, is love.
Did you think it was going to pass?
Yeah, I thought it would eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Any parties planned? Or y'all? We all need to just leave town for Pride weekend?
No, you don't have to leave town. You could go to Pride and watch the parade.
You can participate, honey. You can. We got a place for you, okay? You can get right over here.
Well, the only thing with that is that, especially athletes, because our country seems to be needing athletes to be homosexual. If I went down there and stood out there, and by the time I made it home, everybody be talking about, I knew Wayne was kind of questionable.
It doesn't matter. You're not
It's like, this is
right. You're being at the parade wearing rainbow swim trunks might throw people off, but
Well, Annalisa, hold the line. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. Annalisa Darathal, trauma therapist, gender therapist. More of the Sports Joc Show. 888-926-7562. Welcome back to the Sports Joc Show. I'm the Sports Joc, Wayne Gandy. I used to sing that song when I was 5. Who knew? It was raining men. You're 5, you just sing the song. That's how you grow up.
Right. But that creepy uncle knew what it was. You know what I mean? He knew what you was saying. Sing the song, Lil Wayne. Sing that song.
I'll be doing time right now. Unlike Sandusky people, revenge would have been my whole motivation of living in that time. But we're talking to Annalisa Darathal. She is a gender therapist, trauma therapist. She's being a great sport and helping us try to understand something that I think a lot of us might have questions about. Annalisa, I'll start you off by asking, how common, or if at all, does a person come in, they tell you, okay, my name is Wayne, I want to be Wanda. I come back a couple years later, Annalisa, I no longer want to be Wanda, I want to be Wayne. Does that ever happen? Is that, how does that work?
It happens, but it's the exception, and it's sensational, so you see it on the news, and everybody thinks that it's much more common than it is. So I've been doing this work for 8 years, and I've seen, I don't know, like 200 transgender people, something like that. And I have never had a client that detransitioned. I've had a couple that have talked about it or thought about it because life was too hard and they couldn't get any acceptance or they couldn't get a job or whatever, but other than that, it's pretty rare.
You say you've seen about 200 people. What is the ratio of that from men to women or women to men?
Mostly what I see is male to female.
Okay.
And a lot of people say it's because they're a higher percentage of the population, but I think it's also because female to male people can transition more seamlessly, they can blend in throughout the process because gay rights have achieved a lot of ground in our culture. And so when you see someone who's gay, it's not a big surprise. Like if you see a dyke lesbian, you say, oh, that's a dyke lesbian, and big deal. And she can get by like that. And then starting hormones,
right.
she starts growing facial hair, and then almost, from day to day, she can look like a guy. So, but with male to female, it's much different. The process is more tedious, and it's sometimes changing the physical features is either extremely difficult or impossible.
Are the changes the same? Would you say the difficulties for men to women is more struggle as far as mental?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. In some ways, yes, because of our culture, because it's okay for a woman to dress as a man, but when a man dresses as a woman, it's a big joke. And so trans women, you say when they're male to female, trying to become a female, you say trans women out of respect. So trans women who transition later in life have had to go through male puberty and have had testosterone pumping through their systems for many years, and that's a powerful hormone. And some of them get big bones and big jaws and big feet and big hands, and you can't undo that. You can't change that with hormones or surgery. So it's very difficult, and some of them will say, I don't want to look like a man in a dress. I don't want to be a subject of ridicule. Of course they don't. Nobody does, But they just need to be true to who they are, and they need to feel right in their own skin. So you do what you can.
Annalisa, this is Big Kenny again. First of all, I want to thank you for saying dyke lesbian, because, man, I was wanting to say it earlier, and now you're telling me I couldn't, man, and I'm just... No, but this is a two-part question. One, has there ever been a case, or is there a case in your experience where there's a lot more apprehension from certain people from certain cultures? Do you ever have men from African American or Middle Eastern or whatever backgrounds that are far more apprehensive than other cultures are? And then two, you said that you've been doing this for 8 years. Is this an emerging industry? Are we still, are there pioneers? Are there people vying to be looked at as the expert in this industry because it's still developing so fast?
Well, I'm going to answer the second question. I think yes to both questions. Yes, it is a growing specialty in my field because it's becoming more seen and heard of and known about in the conversation, in the general conversation of our society. And so people are getting the courage to finally come out and express themselves and consider the possibility of transitioning, where before they might have thought it's never even going to happen for me. So now I'm trying to remember what the first question was.
Do you remember? Okay, go ahead.
No, I was asking culturally. I know that a lot of times in the black community, homosexuality is shunned upon to the point where fathers or parents turn their backs on their children and things like that. Are there any cultural differences when you see people come in? Are there some that worry about just finding their own space inside of themselves, or are there some like, look, I'm cool with being who I am, but I could never tell my daddy?
Yeah, yes, and yes. It's true that within certain cultures, like the black community, some Latino cultures, and some Asian cultures, it's much more of a shame thing. And it takes a lot more to get the families on board and understanding and accepting. And some people will, because of that, leave home and just, completely cut off all ties from their family and go start a life somewhere else because they think that's the only way that it's possible for them to do it. And it's sad that it has to be like that. And then there's ones that come out and then to their family, and then they get shamed and beaten and, humiliated and kicked out and homeless and all of that.
Annalisa, this is the truth. How are you today?
Hi.
I I have a question regarding the impact of same-sex marriage, the ruling, and the impact that it'll have on, I guess, some of your clients. We're all kind of aware of the positive impacts, you know, the negative impacts that we see on the news, and, you know, what about procreation and things like that. But if you had to give me 2 or 3 things that you think your clients are really going to benefit from, could you like elaborate on a couple of ways that this ruling is going to impact your clients?
Well, mostly I think it's a recognition thing. It just enables them to, in a big way, be that much more a part of society and be accepted, and not have to feel like they have to hide something that's so meaningful. Mm-hmm. But other things like insurance coverage, or if your loved one is very ill in the hospital or dying, and they'll say only family, mm-hmm. can come in, and if you're not married, then you're not family, and you can't go and be by the bedside of your loved one when they're dying. I mean, you know, some pretty important things go along with being able to be married.
Gotcha. Annalise?
Have the same last name, you know.
Yes, I do.
Things that we all take for granted, and it never even crosses our mind that, you know, there's a word in the lexicon of privilege, like white male privilege. You've probably heard of that.
Yes.
Yes,
we have.
It's crossed my table once or twice. Yeah.
Yeah, in this hour.
Well, you know, African Americans, by and large, can understand white privilege, and because of, you know, things that our country has been through in the last 30, 40 years, whatever, and
30, 40
so
days.
There's a lot of privileges that people who are not part of this community aren't even aware that they have. You know, you're walking around in your day-to-day life not even knowing that there's things that you never have to deal with. There's little injustices and little indignities that transgender people have to experience that you never do.
Gotcha.
And so it's easy to take those things for granted.
Well, Annalisa, Bruce Jenner, he sits on the couch. He says, I want to be Caitlyn Jenner.
Okay.
I sit on the couch. I tell you, I want to be Batman. What's the difference in that? Because at one point we were under the understanding that either one of those